You guys, we've got to talk about this Luna nonsense and what it means for the entire crypto space. I've also got an unhappy ghost hanging out in the midpoint of my screen. In all seriousness, we are going to spend some time talking about the delisting of Luna, why it blew up in the first place, and then after that we will jump into a technical analysis of the remainder of our coins on the watch list. Many of them, it'll just be a quick glance to say, yes, we're still in a downtrend, yes, things are nasty. If you want a dollar cost average in, maybe we're at a buying opportunity, but again, be very careful. That's going to be the main takeaway of today's video. I'll give you the bottom line up front, just like our friend Tom Nash. Nonetheless, with Luna, why did it blow up? What's going on here? Is it going to be relisted? Here's my knowledge. It's going to be a very simple version of what unfolded. If you want more detail, I'm sure you could look it up or someone can leave it down below in the comments section. Luna had a sister coin, and it was an algorithmic stablecoin named Terra. The idea was that Terra would always be pegged to $1 worth of Luna. So as prices fluctuated above the $1 mark on Terra, there would be incentive to sell Terra, keep the difference, and buy back in at $1 when it came back down. The same thing would hold true to the downside. You could buy in as it fluctuated below $1 and then sell it once it went back to $1. Right? And we're talking about very, very, very small arbitrage opportunities. Very rarely would it even move a penny. We're talking about fractions of a penny. But based on algorithmic trading, there's enough volume and arbitrage there to make it worth it. Now, the issue arises when you have Luna, which its supply can be manipulated based on the buying and selling of the stablecoin, right? You can burn or mint coins and, again, manipulate supply there. But the issue is that if you don't have a willing buyer in Luna, then there's nothing saying that an increase in supply and a lack of demand would prevent the coin from essentially going to zero, right? If we compare that model to something like the stock market, let's think about Apple for a second here. Apple makes physical goods. They have a physical office. They have money in the bank, right? All of these things make Apple an attractive investment because there are physical products involved. And ultimately, I would think it would be incredibly difficult for the price of Apple to go from 145 or wherever it was today all the way down to zero over the course of a couple of days because, again, they have physical assets. They have money in the bank. They make physical products. Very, very hard for something like that to go to zero. But in the case of Luna, there's nothing backing this, right? So if the buyers sort of just vanish, no one's interested in trading or investing in Luna anymore, and you're pumping in, I don't want to say an unlimited amount of supply, but lots and lots of supply, you're very, very quickly going to devalue the quote-unquote coin. So that's essentially how this went to zero and how it happened so fast. Is it going to be relisted? I'm not entirely sure. To me, this would seem like such a large flaw in the underlying structure of the coin that it would be very hard for something like this to see a massive recovery. If you think otherwise or have any more information, and again, I fully recognize that that was a very, very simple explanation of what happened here, but if you want to expand on that in the comments section, more than willing to be open to your thoughts and comments down below. I think the bigger takeaway here, though, is the fact that when we're investing in the crypto space, we need to be mindful of the risks involved and probably not invest any more than you're willing to lose. For those of you who have been around the channel for any period of time, you understand that my stance on crypto is dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and Ethereum. I buy a little bit every single time I see it coming into support, and if it bounces and ends up working out in 10, 15, 20, 50 years, fantastic. Again, I'll look back and say, wow, that was pretty smart to do. If it doesn't, I'm not really investing a large enough amount where it's going to break my financial future. Just to give you an idea, it's anywhere between $100 and $500 a month, right? Not really a make or break in my particular case. So nonetheless, that's my stance on crypto. And what happened with Luna just reinforces the idea that you need to be only willing to put in what you're willing to lose, right? That's the main takeaway here with Luna in my personal estimation. So nonetheless, what do we see in our charts? Let's take a quick tour through these things and see, are we at attractive buy points or not? Bitcoin, certainly in an overall downtrend now, actually confirming, right? If we were to draw in something like this, we had a sideways range for a couple of years since 2021. I guess it's more like just a year and a half here. But nonetheless, we've broken down out of that, right? We did technically form a new lower low with this big Luna crash. So at the end of the day, this is even more firmly now in a downtrend. Now, is it at support here, the bottom end of the prior range? Absolutely. Did I buy some here? Absolutely. I didn't nail this bottom down here around 24K, but I was certainly a buyer at 30K Bitcoin. So nonetheless, going forward, if this bounces, I think the next critical question that we have to answer is what happens in the sense of this smaller balance that we had been discussing for many weeks prior to this week, right? Do we come in here for a backtest rollover for a lower high and continue on our merry way downwards? Maybe. It's certainly a possibility. The number you're going to want to watch there is $34,350 per coin. And even if it does move a little bit higher than that, there's still a significant overhead resistance here, which was prior support, and really the area where this started to break down from, around $37,500 per coin. So there's a lot of overhead resistance here, but again, if your time horizon is long enough, 10, 15, 25, 50 years, it might make sense to dollar cost average a little bit. Again, nothing that's going to break the bank here, around this 30K mark. Overall, in the short term, I would say, yeah, the outlook is certainly for lower, noting everything we discussed prior to that, right? We're breaking down, we've made a new lower low outside of this big area of balance. If it continues lower, we're looking at, again, either 24K or getting closer to 20K, this prior shelf of breakout from in here. And there's nothing to say it can go lower than that, right? A big area would be down around $12,250 per coin. Do I think it's going there in the blink of an eye? Not really. But again, anything can happen in the crypto space, as we just saw with Luna. So be open to that possibility. But overall, chart's in a bearish position, right? For the longer time frame, maybe a dollar cost average at the 30K Bitcoin, but that's up to you. Next up, we've got Ethereum. What's going on in Ethereum? Notice that this did not, on a relative basis, break 30K Bitcoin. This area right here would be equivalent to 30K Bitcoin, and that's where we supported here inside of Ethereum. Was I a buyer here? Yes, actually I was. That one I was lucky enough to put in an order. I had that resting order around that 1750 mark. So nonetheless, what do we see going forward here in Ethereum? The same sort of idea will apply to what we just discussed in Bitcoin. If we make the move higher, we're coming into a prior breakdown point from here, which was already resistance, around that 2500 mark. So to me, still a strong opportunity for a lower high here and then an equal low. I suppose if we're going to see a turn in the crypto space, we've got to see something that does this. It makes that back test. Sure, it might start to pull back, but if we can form a higher low and then break out for a new higher high, that would obviously change the short-term trend. Very speculative in terms of what I just outlined. And again, I don't really think that people are feeling warm and fuzzy about the crypto space right now from a psychological standpoint. So I don't think that that's a primary objective, but that would be something to at least consider. If we just want to consolidate down here, yeah, bear flag is building out. Eventually, the breakdown of that 1750, 1775 could bring us down closer to 1362. Right? So that's the overall look here inside of Ethereum. In the short term, again, don't get me wrong, everything here is bearish. Next up, we've got Binance Coin. Let's move a little bit faster through the remainder of the coins, just because, again, the big two to me are the ones that I'm most interested in. These, now that this has happened in Luna, strike me as far less attractive, right? In terms of quick trade ideas, Binance Coin potentially has the best looking hammer down here. Notice the really long lower wick and the fact that we closed back above this prior support that we had mapped out. We are taking out that high of the hammer, so that does trigger a daily buy signal. But notice we're already printing a little bit of an upper wick, so I'm not sure I would chase it as of right now. The time to get long was on the break there for either a scalp or looking for a back test here. And of course, your stop is going to go there. So you've really got to make sure if you are trying to chase this long, your risk reward makes sense. And to have that make sense, you're probably going to need to target the trend line for something like that to be in play. And do I think it's going to the trend line? I'm not overly convinced. Again, this is certainly in the territory of the bears. So we'll see. But those are my thoughts here inside of Binance Coin. Any breakdowns underneath 259, kiss this thing goodbye. Next support, I suppose we have that lower wick, which was around 208. But after that, I mean, really down to 141, right? That's Binance Coin. Cardano, absolutely continuing to get destroyed here. We knew that this one had given back 100% of that move from in here. We also talked about this last weekend. Hopefully that kept you out of trouble. And the fact that that was really a nasty move there, right back down into this 77-cent support. Obviously, it flushed with the Luna crash, and we're currently building out, again, in my estimation, bear flag consolidation down here. If I had to pick out a level, it's this one I've got mapped out around 59 cents. If we remain below, bear flag consolidation. If we crack above, maybe we come in for the back test of the flush point. But really, I mean, think about how significant of a lower high that would be from here to here to here. In the past, we had all of this, right? Clearly in a downtrend here inside of Cardano. If it wants to shift the tone and do something like this and start building out a new uptrend, that's one thing, but currently bearish look. Next up, we've got Solana, same exact thing, right? Breaking down underneath this big flush point, moving through all of our prior supports. We actually moved into the midpoint of this prior range from right around here, roughly $40. What's the current look on the chart in the short term? Again, bear flag, very likely to build out. Treat this area, so we can actually grab the rectangle tool to draw this one in. Treat this area right here like a low volume node that's roughly between 60 and 56, so about a $4 range there in Solana. If we can crack up through that, maybe there's a scalp on like a 5-minute chart in there, but be careful, be careful. Obviously, clearly in a downtrend, and anything that remains below that yellow box builds out bear flag consolidation, looking for breakdowns underneath 45 to get us to the bottom end of that daily range we pointed out from here, around 2076. Polkadot up next, bouncing probably the strongest off of the lows. So again, there's your daily hammer up and over the highs, making the move higher. It's also above this sort of area right here around $10.60. So if there's going to be relative strength, maybe it's actually here inside of Polkadot. Notice, on a percentage basis, it's actually up 25% today. So anything that builds out on the short term, like on a, I don't know, it might be a 30-minute time frame, a 15-minute time frame as a bull flag, maybe this is your best bet for something that retraces through the thin structure here, noting that it's already starting to get out of that bear flag territory underneath that 1060. From a Fibonacci perspective, let's just quickly come in and see where that's at. Yeah, it's actually above that 38.2. And again, guys, I literally can't make this stuff up. The 38.2 has perfectly coincided with that 1060. So very interesting to see. Again, any consolidation that happens above this now, maybe it's actually attractive for a short-term scalp to the upside. Again, don't overstay your welcome. Obviously, the look is bearish, making a continued new lower low way down here underneath that. But in the short term, again, scalp might be available for some upside. Next up, we've got Crypto.com coin, new all-time low in the coin. This one, again, it's just not even really worth watching, especially at this price point, 18 cents. As more of a sentiment gauge, remember that Crypto.com coin gets converted to other coins because that's the native platform coin. I'm not convinced that this is a good look for crypto overall. To me, it would seem that people are just nothing's going on here. People are running for the exit sign, if anything, from this negative action here in Crypto.com coin. Would I take it long off of these new lows? Absolutely not. There's no structure off to the left here that would provide any sort of support. And again, remembering that there are no physical assets that back this type of thing, I mean, who's to say that this won't dribble down towards like 5 cents, right? Really not something I want to be involved in at this point in time. Doesn't even look good in the short term. We did not print a significant hammer. We did not take out the prior bar high. Not my first choice. Next up, we've got Matic USD for Polygon. What's going on in this one? Obviously making a new significant low as well underneath this, coming in and supporting at this prior balance high in there around 48 cents. It did trigger a buy over the hammer from the prior day, but it's already back in range. Wouldn't really consider that a good look here. Anything that continues in this range here between 70 cents roughly and 48 cents, again, there's your bear flag look, looking for lower out of that. If we crack these highs with any significant sort of momentum, if you will, maybe there's a back test of this flush point here around $1. It's also that psychological number as well. So be mindful of that, but again, wouldn't be my first choice. We've talked about many other setups that look better, right? Namely, Polkadot, I would say, to the upside. Mana USD, again, on a percentage basis, up a lot, 46% on today's session, but that's, of course, because of the price point. If we look at structure, not attractive. Not attractive. The time to either get it was at this support on the lower wick there, going purely bottom fishing with a tight stop underneath, hoping for a dead cat bounce, probably just up to where it is now. That would have been the trade. I certainly didn't play that. I wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot knife. But we know that this is just sort of our metaverse watch play, okay? So currently, based on where the chart is, I'm not overly convinced that it's a long or a short. If we think about the back test of the breakdown point, that would be around 135. Do I think there's reason to long it for that little distance there? Not really, when your risk is all the way back down for an equal low. And I also don't think you would short it here, noting that we're already pretty extended to the downside. Again, I just don't see a reason to be touching this sort of thing right now. In terms of what this implies for the metaverse plays, not really a good look. I would want to see 50 cents hold up here inside of Decentraland. If that goes, kind of a big deal, noting that major structure is being violated. Maybe we move back down to like 50, that's actually, are we on logarithmic? No. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the cursor just updated. Closer to 13 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents, right? That's a big hit. At first, it was reading like 40 cents. I was like, there's no way that distance is only 10 cents. Nonetheless, Mana, probably not on my list for this upcoming week. Next up, Avalanche. This was one that we added just based on it sort of showing a decent amount of strength in here, bouncing off the lows. Obviously, just like everything else, back in bear territory. Building out a bear flag in here. Hammer, inverted hammer. Would I touch it? Absolutely not in this range. If we start to crack up at over 39, maybe there's a retracement back up to backtest the breakdown point at 54.50. If we crack underneath 22, kiss this thing goodbye. Our next support is coming in from the bottom of this sort of rounded bottom down here, which, if we grab our tool, is roughly $9. So do you want to hold it from 22.35 down to 9.25? Probably not really wise in my estimation. So everything has a bearish look. Again, if you're going to average into any coins, probably make it the big two. Again, I can't tell you what to do, but that would be my recommendation at least. Apecoin, what do we see here? Currently, sideways consolidation. We know that we had the spike out of it, retraced 100% through it, and now we're forming a bear flag underneath. Bearish look, especially if we can't get back over 10 in Apecoin, not good. And you might make the argument that, hey, it has a big enough community behind it. Maybe it'll get some sort of rebound here. That's fine, but prove it to me first by getting some price acceptance over 10, and then we can talk for some sort of breakout. As of right now, strikes me as bear flag consolidation. Looking for lower if this resolves to the downside. Of course, ICO would be your target here, noting that we had virtually no structure on the way higher. That's going to be around $1, right? So that's our watch list. That's the state of crypto in a nutshell. Nasty, nasty moves out there, all spurred by our Luna debacle there. I believe hashtag lunatic is trending on Twitter. Nonetheless, if you enjoyed today's video, the recap, the brief, simplified explanation there of what's going on with Luna, let me know down below in the comments section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget that our weekly watch list for stocks will come out on Sunday as regularly scheduled. And with all of that being said, I wish you a green trading weekend.